Alright guys, how's it going? After spending the last 10 weeks in Scotland, I am finally back home in Sweden. But moving swiftly on to the big news of the week. Over at HardOCP and Kyle Bennett, the GeForce Partner Program which impacts consumer choice. Kyle starts this by saying, while we usually like to focus on all the wonderful and immersive worlds that video cards and their GPUs can open up to us, today we are tackling something a bit different. The GeForce Partner Program, known as GPP in the industry, is a marketing, in quotes, program that looks to HardOCP as being an anti-competitive tactic against AMD and Intel. Now, Kyle continued by clarifying his motives for this article. He believes that this GPP, the GeForce Partner Program, is going to greatly and negatively impact consumer choice in the add-in board and original equipment manufacturing computer market. Consumer choice is going to be decimated, and looking at the program guidelines, he truly thinks that is what will happen and is where his concern lies. But before continuing, and in his effort to be as transparent as possible, Kyle claims that it was AMD that put him onto this in the first place. Now, there's nothing particularly unusual about that. Obviously, these companies are happy to contact all of the press with good news about their own products, and less often negative news about their competitor. Kyle continued with, AMD shopped this story with other websites as well. Now, those of you watching this probably think if there was any story to be told here that needed a bit more digging into, then AMD probably contacted Adored as well. But that simply did not happen. And from doing my own digging around, it would appear that this whole thing has come from AMD's American PR. I've asked around other people, and there does not appear to have been any UK, EU, or Australian press told about this from their respective PR. But I can confirm that others outside of HardOCP were contacted with this story. And Kyle goes on by saying there was in fact no story to be told by AMD. It looks more like AMD has simply pointed them in this direction, and that there needed to be some legwork done in collecting facts and interviews. So this is basically what Kyle has done over the past 3 weeks or so, maybe even longer, and I've been doing something similar over the past week. But by this point you're probably wondering, what exactly is Nvidia's GPP? So let's take a quick look at that before continuing. Over at blogs.nvidia.com, a blog dated March the 1st by John Teeple. And the GeForce Partner Program helps gamers know what they're buying. As you can see here, it's a pretty small blog. Starting off with, in our latest effort to better serve gamers, we're introducing our GeForce Partner Program. Now, first of all, whenever you see anything like this, where a company is claiming to better serve anyone except for themselves, chances are the rest of what you read after that will also be complete and utter bullshit. But it continues, the GeForce Partner Program is designed to ensure that gamers have full transparency into the GPU platform and software they're being sold, and can confidently select products that carry the Nvidia GeForce promise. Now, I would suggest that the Nvidia logo on these products would generally have been enough to ensure that you knew you were buying an Nvidia product, but apparently that's not the case, and Nvidia now believes that this transparency is only possible when Nvidia brands and partner brands are consistent. So they've developed this new program, the GPP, GeForce Partner Program, where they'll be promoting their partner brands across the web, on social media, at events and more. And those GPP partners will get early access to their latest innovations and work closely with their engineering teams to bring the newest technologies to gamers. And while that sounds great, I'm pretty sure all of Nvidia's partners are already getting this from the company. But apparently partners are signing up fast for this because they see the benefit of keeping brands and communication consistent and transparent. And then things get a little bit weird because the blog ends by saying that the program isn't exclusive. Now, up to this point, nobody had claimed it was, and that their partners continue to have the ability to sell and promote products from anyone. It's all about the partner's choice to sign up for the program, and they can stop participating in it at any time. Of course, doing so presumably means that they will lose this early access to Nvidia's latest innovations and ability to work closely with their engineering teams, a thing that most of them already have. But thankfully, if you're one of these AIBs or OEMs, there's no commitment to make any monetary payments or product discounts for being part of the program. And the final paragraph of the blog is this: GPP ensures our engineering and marketing efforts support brands consumers associate with GeForce. That transparency will give gamers the confidence needed to make their purchase, whichever products they choose. Right, so back over at HardOCP, and we learn that they have been in the computer hardware review business for over 20 years now, and this is true. Kyle Bennett's been around since the days of Tom's Hardware, when Tom actually owned Tom's Hardware, and they've had one or two interesting arguments, in fact, but that's another video. But obviously when you've been involved in the business for that time frame, you make an abundance of contacts along the way. And as mentioned previously, he spent the last 3 weeks talking to OEMs and AIBs about this, and states that given how GPP is supposedly all about transparency, you might think that these OEMs and AIBs would be chomping at the bit to get some free press on how these companies are part of the program. He then goes on to say that he has contacted 7 companies, but not one of the 7 would talk to them on the record. And the ones that did speak to him have done so anonymously in fear of losing their jobs, or some other retribution by Nvidia. But the ones that did speak all said the same thing. They believe that the GPP has terms that are likely illegal, it will likely tremendously hurt consumer choice, and it will also disrupt these companies' business with AMD and Intel. And the biggest problem here appears to be this one single requirement. In order to be part of the GeForce Partner Program, their gaming brand must be exclusively aligned with GeForce. And Kyle claims to have read documents with this requirement spelled out on it. He then goes on to use ASUS's ROG brand as a hypothetical example of this. We know ASUS's Republic of Gamers brand, which they use in their motherboards, their graphics cards, even their laptops. And essentially, what Nvidia has attempted to do here is basically claim this brand for their own. Now again, this is a hypothetical example, and we don't know for sure if ASUS has agreed to this. We'll find out more about that later. But think about other companies, for example Gigabyte, who have their Aorus branding, and they also have a gaming brand. MSI have a gaming brand. We could even be talking about stuff like Dell and Alienware, HP and their Omen branding. Any of these high-end gaming brands, which may include GeForce gaming cards, and almost certainly do, Nvidia is now basically laying claim to those brands and aligning it with their own. The main issue with this is, of course, the exclusively word. Now over at the blog, Nvidia claims that the program isn't exclusive. ASUS, Gigabyte, MSI, they can all continue to sell and promote products from anyone. They just can't do it with their gaming brand. So Nvidia has basically given them the option. You can align with us exclusively, allowing you to keep all the stuff that we already give you. And as Kyle continues, and if you choose not to be part of it, you will lose all of those benefits, including from documents he has read, high effort engineering engagements, early tech engagement, launch partner status, even game bundling, sales rebate programs, social media and PR support, as well as marketing reports, and finally marketing development funds, or MDF. And as Kyle says, MDF is likely the standout in that list of lost benefits if the company is not a GPP partner. Now Kyle continues with, as you might recall, and anyone watching my channel surely does recall, we have seen onerous terms such as those contained in GPP to have many similarities to Intel's once monopolistic business practices, versus AMD of course, in withholding MDF to partners. We saw how they threw billions of dollars at Dell and others, and then cancelled those payments as soon as Dell went with AMD servers. Essentially what it comes down to is, if you've got a bunch of money, you can wield that money like a weapon. And we all know that today, Nvidia has a bunch of money. And the last paragraph of Kyle on this subject is this. What is disturbing is that they have been told that if a company does not participate in the GPP, these companies feel as if Nvidia would hold back allocation of GPUs from their inventories. That was not spelled out contractually, but is rather done on a wink and a nod. Now before I move on to the next part of the video, just let me clarify one or two things here. First of all, Kyle mentions that he has contacted 7 companies about this. So that should instantly get you wondering, well, who are these 7 companies? If you think about Nvidia's ecosystem, they have very many graphics card partners. You've got guys like EVGA, you've got Palette, and you've got guys like Zotac, but they are all already part of the GeForce ecosystem in reality. So really this would be aimed at other companies, as Kyle hypothesized, companies like ASUS, and then companies like MSI, and probably Gigabyte as well. Now ASUS, MSI, Gigabyte, as we know, they are neutral partners who also work with AMD and Intel. It seems rather obvious that those 3 are included in this. Who are the other 4 companies though? We simply don't know, and in fact we may never know. The point here is, they have requested anonymity because they are simply worried about what Nvidia will do to them. Now as I said, I've also been asking around. I don't have the contacts that Kyle has, but I do have 1 or 2. But obviously I will also not be giving up those sources. You just can't do it in this industry. If you've got sources who give you information, you simply do not go ahead and tell who those are. You might decide to leave 1 or 2 clues. And you might also deliberately decide to leave one or two wrong clues in order to deliberately give people the wrong idea. This is all just part of this game. What really matters is the information. In cases like this, you simply just have to trust us that we did indeed speak to these people, but we cannot give them up as sources because, well, that would just be the completely wrong thing to do. And similarly, we simply need to trust Kyle when he says that he has read these documents, which talk about stuff like MDF. There's no reason not to believe that. These documents almost certainly exist. However, stuff like this at the end, winks and nods, and stuff that hasn't been spelled out contractually, obviously none of this is admissible evidence in court. It may or may not have happened. Maybe it was misunderstood. I highly doubt it was misunderstood, as Nvidia are pretty good at putting their point across. But the real point here is nothing like this can stand up in court. So there's one or two things there that might make you think, well, there's really nothing to this at all. Kyle claims to have spoken to these guys, he claims to have seen documents, and he has perhaps learned of one or two veiled threats. But there is nothing concrete there. It's just the nature of this game. You simply have to look at Kyle's history and say, can we trust this guy, what he's saying? And for those of you following the industry, you will probably know, only a couple of years ago, he had a major falling out with ATI as well. However, there was some very interesting information in this article and follow-up articles where Kyle basically said that Raja was basically looking to sell Radeon Technologies Group to Intel, that he would be joining Intel, and then later on it was Kyle who broke the news about Intel using Radeon graphics. This again all comes down to sources and contacts, and if he was right about all that stuff, there's a very high chance that he is also right about all of this. Whether or not you believe it is entirely up to you. Now, before I finish off this video by looking at the reasons why Nvidia is doing this, I really need to cover another point. And this is also one that Kyle has brought up himself, where he states that one thing we know is that Nvidia has made a lot of enemies over the years. You can easily put AMD, Apple and Intel on that list. You can put Microsoft on that list. You can put Sony on that list. You can put Samsung on that list. In fact, Nvidia has more enemies than they have friends, by far. And they don't think twice about making enemies in the press either. And it was expressed to Kyle that publishing this article could damage the relationship between HardOCP and Nvidia. To which Kyle speculates that damaging the relationship means that they will very likely not be doing any Nvidia GPU reviews at launch time. In a tweet over at VideoCards, we learned that other tech journalists wanted to cover it, but they were short on evidence and didn't want to do so due to a possible defamation lawsuit. I heard of at least one large tech website who decided against running this story and instead advised Nvidia that AMD were letting the press know. We have seen plenty of instances of Nvidia doing this in the past. They're a company who is happy to sacrifice everybody, and to be frank, I believe most in the tech press are just afraid of them. And Nvidia are different to AMD. AMD have refused to send graphics cards to plenty of guys, including HardOCP, in the past, but AMD are also more willing to kiss and make up. You get on Nvidia's bad side? Chances are you're staying there forever. So if you're wondering why this hasn't been reported absolutely everywhere, perhaps there's a couple of reasons why. So last night around 4 in the morning, I am analysing all this in my head and asking myself, what is this all about? What is Nvidia up to here in their latest effort to better serve gamers? We know for a fact that that is not what they're up to. And at 4 o'clock last morning, I'm thinking to myself, this has to be about this whole Intel and Radeon tie-in. The collaboration of Intel and AMD with Intel CPUs alongside Vega graphics. We will see these in laptops, however they will now no longer carry the Asus ROG branding. Chances are they won't be labelled as gaming laptops. And then you've got all your motherboards as well. Again, sticking with Asus and their high-end ROG stuff. How is this going to work? Assuming Nvidia has just laid claim to Asus's ROG branding, are we now no longer going to see these motherboards? I mean, if you think about it, and I've talked about this in the past, Intel completely owns the motherboard guys, or at least we thought they did until now. Now it looks like Nvidia owns these guys instead. But all these motherboard guys, Asus, MSI, Gigabyte, they get the specifications from Intel and AMD, and then they build motherboards around those specifications. I talked about that in my AMD Inside video, the beginning of the end for Nvidia in PC. I discussed where AMD and Intel could decide to chop PCIe out of their CPUs. And if they both did that, then Nvidia would have no access to those CPUs. Basically speaking, their graphics cards would be useless. And this is a future that both Intel and AMD would like to bring around, and they could, but Intel are a little bit too afraid of that, because as we know, they get absolutely thrashed on integrated graphics. But now all of these gaming motherboards, the branding of which covered Intel, AMD and Nvidia, now appears to be an Nvidia exclusive. Is this Nvidia's way of assuring continued access to PCIe? Well no, it can't be, because Intel and AMD, if they go ahead with that, it's a killing blow anyway. It's a completely pointless thing for Nvidia to try. So as much as this sounded like a good idea at 4 in the morning, it just doesn't seem realistic. And eventually I just stopped searching for an ulterior motive. Instead of thinking it's all about this PCIe thing and Nvidia simply being worried about their future, I think there's a simpler and more obvious explanation. The reason they're doing this is because they can. And that is pretty much it. I've been following this story very closely all week, including on the HardOCP forum where Kyle continued to give more information throughout the week. And in a post on Monday he said he was just informed through a solid source that ASUS and MSI have already signed on to do Nvidia's GPP. He was not able to verify that information with ASUS or MSI yet, and he doubted he would be able to. Well, I was able to verify that information. At least one of these companies, and probably both, will be differentiating their graphics card branding between Nvidia and AMD. That is all I could find out about that, but you can pretty much take this as double confirmed. But it's not just going to end at these two, I'm pretty sure they all will, because that's the biggest problem here. The only way this doesn't go ahead is if all of them together say, no way Nvidia, you can shove your GPP. As soon as one agrees to it though, they get the favoured partner status and the rest suffer. This is what happens when you're bringing about a monopoly. Another interesting post from Kyle yesterday was this, that Nvidia is now approaching sites with a rather negative message if they give this GPP story any coverage other than to paint their reporting in a negative light, dismissing it as nonsense and not worth the coverage. And then later on yesterday, Kyle gave an interview with PC World. I'll leave a link to that in the description. You can watch it all and decide for yourself. But simply put, just think about what has transpired here. Nvidia has basically claimed ASUS's, MSI's, almost certainly Gigabyte's, maybe even guys like Alienware and HP's branding all for themselves. And going back to this GeForce blog, which claims that GPP ensures their engineering and marketing efforts support brands consumers associate with GeForce. Do you associate ASUS ROG with GeForce? I certainly don't. I associated that with ASUS, and it was completely neutral branding. Not once did I ever associate that with GeForce. And why did it have to be their gaming brand anyway? Why could Nvidia not have created a new brand in collaboration with the likes of ASUS, MSI, etc.? Why take their branding that they have spent years developing and basically claim it as their own? And again, it comes back down to because they can. So now we've got a bunch of companies who basically have to rebrand their own branding, look for new branding for the likes of Intel and AMD as well. And who's going to pay for all of this? The answer to that is, of course, you're going to pay for all that, because all these extra costs will, of course, filter down to you, the end user. You basically pay for Nvidia forcing AMD and Intel out of these companies' gaming branding. Like every other marketing ploy out of Nvidia, it's just absolute genius, but it can only be done through fear. Nvidia is a company that rules by fear. So I'm going to end this video with something I very rarely do, which is just having a rant. I'm going to start off with the press, the tech press, who to be frank are absolutely useless. They have simply let Nvidia get away with this stuff for far too long, and even now some are refusing to cover it because they are scared. They are terrified of Nvidia. Almost to a publication, they lined up to absolve Nvidia over the GTX 970 3.5GB fiasco. It's still a great card, they said, and almost all of them claimed it couldn't possibly have been a lie. Nvidia would never lie to us. It was just a silly mistake. A mix-up between engineering and marketing. Funnily enough though, GPU-Z also claims 4GB of VRAM for the GTX 970. So unless Nvidia's marketers are also writing their drivers, it seems pretty likely that everybody at Nvidia knew exactly what they were doing. You had the whole thing with the GTX 1060 3GB chop down card, and again people in the press said, it's not too bad, we'll let them off with it. They lied about async compute and Maxwell. that was the end of it. They simply lied about it. They lied about having a bunch of VR stuff that never saw the light of day. We know all about GameWorks. You've got all your GeForce experience crap. You've got your G-Sync. You've got your CUDA. You've got your vendor lock-ins at every single opportunity. Now they're stopping data centers from using GeForce cards. We got the Founders Edition scalping the early adopters. And now we have what amounts to, I would call it theft, of some very large IHVs and OEMs gaming branding. I would call it theft, but of course, it looks like they're giving it away willingly, so it's not really theft, right? What it is absolute stupidity. I cannot believe a company like ASUS would actually agree to something like this. Branding they have put millions of dollars into over the years, and now basically aligning it with Nvidia. Whoever made that decision at ASUS and MSI and everywhere else, when you all got together and made that decision, I really hope you also discussed how to prevent the next thing that Nvidia will come up with that affects your company. As far as AMD and Intel goes, Intel, absolutely no sympathy. They've got plenty of money, they can do whatever they want, but they're absolutely useless and they won't. This is AMD's great chance. What AMD should be doing right now is creating their own brand with all of these OEMs and AIBs. And rather than aligning these companies' brands, they should create one single brand across all of these add-in boards and OEMs. It will be very interesting to see how they react to this. And I have heard something along those lines that they may well be doing that. We will see. For me, that is the smart thing for them to do. But this is only really possible because of the terrible state of the PC market and, in particular, the graphics market right now. We've already heard Nvidia's CEO say that they were selling 10 times more cards than their competitor. As far as the gaming market goes, that is almost certainly true. And that sounds like a monopoly to me. They have a complete grip of PC gaming. Press are terrified of them, and some are just far too willing to play their games. But you know what? Over time, viewing figures are dropping. Readership is dropping all the time at some of these websites because there's no competition and people are sick and tired of it. And the sad thing about it is we simply don't even know if AMD cares anymore. They're already selling a bunch of graphics cards to miners. The focus is clearly on the data center and in particular on Epic because that's where all the money is. So it is quite likely that no, sorry, AMD is not coming to the rescue. Not this time. I asked AMD for a comment and they said that they are aware of the new Nvidia partner program for PC and add-in board partners that they believe could limit consumer access to competitive graphics technologies, but they are not commenting on any of the specifics that have not been disclosed publicly by Nvidia at this time, but they believe that consumers should ask for full transparency around the program. Nvidia, you mentioned transparency 3 times in your blog. Why don't you tell us what it's really all about? And for this video, I also reached out to Nvidia, but so far have not yet had a response, so there is nothing else I can say about that. But that is pretty much it for this one. I'm pretty sure this stuff simply drives people away from PC gaming, and in the end, everybody loses. Everybody except Nvidia. But I'm done here. Check out the video description for all the links. Check out my Amazon links, all that sort of stuff. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you later, guys.